Indeed. Well, staying on the subject of all things international, let us now talk to Erol Morkoc, who is the spokesman of Republicans overseas, about that big Donald Trump mugshot. What happens next? 4 indictments for the former US president. Will he end up running the free world from behind bars? Erol, what's going on here?
Well, I guess the DA is getting her 15 minutes of fame. So first off, good on her. Don't hate the player, hate the game. But ultimately, the mugshot is an instant campaign poster, we can say. And Donald Trump posted it within, a few minutes on Twitter. And after the 4th arrest, that's cumulatively, I think, around 700 years of total jail time. It's a wonder they haven't gotten a photo before. So I suppose, depending on how you read it, it certainly isn't a positive that the president, or any American president, let's say, regardless of who it is, has been, booked and taken into a jail cell like that. But it's certainly a situation where the cornerstone of the crux of the issue is that he was challenging the result and suspected that there were still yet to be counted ballots. They're considering that to be essentially sedition. Now, Thomas Jefferson famously said, "Nation of laws, not a nation of men." And Donald Trump has every right to challenge the election until the final second of the final hour of the final minute and then concede, which he did. And the current regime has cast aside the First Amendment to try to take down a primary challenger. Let me remind you, this was 2.5 years ago that this occurred. So the charges timing are all very politically timed to drain the Trump campaign resources. And it took 2.5 years to bring the charges. I mean, to quote Joe Biden, come on, man.
I mean, I would tend to agree. It looks pretty transparent to me what's going on, that this is politically motivated, without a doubt, given that I heard earlier as well that at least 20 Democrats who have held office have also refuted election results, and they haven't been dragged to prison either. And it sets a dangerous precedent, doesn't it? That if you turn around and say, well, I think something funny's gone on here with these elections, that what, you're going to be taken to jail for it? I mean, do you think we're going to see a lot more of this going forward? Because it will just become common practice when someone loses or when someone doesn't like the opposition to start weaponizing American law.
Oh, absolutely. And it's awful. When you consider, just in 2016, Mrs. Clinton lost the election, immediately joined the resistance. Special prosecutor, Russian collusion. It was all nonsense. You had ex-president Jimmy Carter on stage saying, we can't trust these election results, this and that. I mean, look at what's happening in Pakistan with Imran Khan. We're mirroring that in America. And to be fair, why couldn't somebody in Mecklenburg County, Virginia, convene a local grand jury and indict Joe Biden on whatever they imagine and drag him down there and do this? So this does set a precedent. What's important for the Republican Party is to not follow this. We need to be bigger. We need to be better. And when we do win the 2024 election, we need to put a stop to this. We don't need to take revenge. We need to fix a country that's gone off kilter, and we need to bring it back to the center and not be a vengeful party. Yeah. And I don't think that Donald Trump would do that.
I'm really glad you said that, actually, because it does seem to me, the more that, I observe America from a distance, it's just a screaming mess right now. And you're right to compare it to Pakistan, where, frankly, being put in prison is a rite of passage if you want to become prime minister of that particular country. Everyone's served some time in a jail at some point. But, we've got a big issue here, don't we? Because America seems to be at war with itself. These sorts of tactics that are being used just increase that sense of division. It emboldens people to carry on becoming more tribalistic in their viewpoints. And we need a strong America right now.
We need a strong America for Europe. We need a strong America for America. We need a strong America for the Pacific. And right now, as the Americans squabble between themselves and tear themselves to pieces, the world is not exactly going through a whack of change. You look at the BRICS realignment, you look at the sort of disaster that's going on in the Ukraine, as much as we, supporting them and hoping that they'll be successful. It's not exactly going swimmingly. There's no talks of peace. So we need America internally to not be so convoluted, or else the world is not going to have American leadership. It's going to have Chinese or Russian leadership.
I mean, on that note, when we need a sensible America, is Trump really the best person to be the Republicans' candidate? I mean, I understand he is topping the polls by a long stretch, and I'm a huge believer in democracy, and I'm actually quite a big fan of the Donald as well. But putting that aside, he does seem to have this propensity to attract drama like flies to flypaper. He's hardly the sort of coalition candidate to bring America together to sort of heal old wounds and actually have a sort of sensible and respected America on the world stage, because, love him or loathe him, he often invites controversy. Should he not, if he really had America's interests at heart, step aside and say to one of the other Republican candidates, I'm going to endorse you, I'm going to back you, that's going to help you get over the line, and here's the fresh start?
Well, you make a very strong and fair point there. And from a strategic game theory perspective, Donald Trump is not going to be the best candidate to win in a general election. You have candidates like Vivek or like Ron DeSantis. Vivek did really well into the debate, somebody who Trump could come in and do that to. But you have to keep in mind, just for the sake of argument, up until 2009, Donald Trump was a registered Democrat. He certainly isn't a traditional Republican. In many ways, most of the Republican Party, younger people, we see, though, that Clinton, Bush, Obama is all kind of one and the same. And Donald Trump was a political outsider who broke that oligarchy. So he's not exactly beholden to the Republican Party, and he certainly doesn't feel a loyalty to them when he believes that they should be loyal to him. But you're correct. From an American standpoint, yes, he probably would be, from, again, just a statistical, theoretical point of view, best off to pass the torch to somebody like Vivek or Ron. But that's not Donald Trump. That's not the Teflon Don. The rise, the fall, the redemption, that's the American dream. That's the American story. And Donald Trump is not going to sit back and take it, as much as perhaps statistically he should. The rest of the world, keep in mind, they might have not liked him, but he's the one who got all the countries to start funding NATO. He was the one who was the first president in 60 years not to start a war. We had low inflation. We had overdose rates going down. In the end, the American people need an American president. And if they, in a Democratic election, feel that it's Donald Trump, the world's going to have to deal with 4 more years of the Donald. And we'll see
well, one could argue in an era where there's so much going on geopolitically, and there are some pretty ghoulish tyrants out there, from President Xi to Vladimir Putin, that a tough-talking man like Donald Trump, a no-nonsense leader, is exactly what America needs and what the West needs. Erol Morkoc, spokesman for the Republicans overseas, thank you so much for shedding some light on what's going on in America. Taking a short